That's a cool name, Arrow.
Yeah, it's just one of those radio names, dude. I was up in Billings, Montana, and bearing the name Clarence, and I thought, Clarence on the radio just didn't sound right.
Clarence. No, I hear that. Yeah, Clarence is your CPA. He's not your morning guy, is he?
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Hey, before we get started, I really want to thank you for the TV show Speechless because that was my family.
Oh.
My brother would not let anything get in his way, and I just felt like that I was living my life through you guys.
Oh, wow. That means a great deal. I love hearing that. I hear that a lot, and it always chokes me up a little bit. I don't mind telling you. I'm really glad we were able to show that kind of family for 3 seasons. Can I ask what your brother's diagnosis was?
He challenged but if you ever went up to him and said, Teddy, you're slow in this area, or you physically can't do this, and he would look at me and he'd go, I'm your big brother. Do not ever tell me what I can't do. And I mean,
Wow.
and so he would drive that into my soul. And to this day, my sister and I speak of that, about how he always reminded us that do not ever stand in his way.
That's gorgeous, and that was a huge message of the show too.
Yeah, yeah.
That was
Oh my
that was
God.
something we tried to get across. Yeah.
Oh, and the way that it ended, dude. I mean, you talk about, I still cry over that. I mean, because first of all, I didn't want it to end, and number two, it just shows everybody grows up.
Yeah. Yeah, that was we had a feeling that we were circling the drain when we shot that because our numbers had gone down and there was a real sense of like, good night, Wesley. I'll most likely kill you in the morning, it was that kind of vibe on set. And I think we threw our all into that series finale without being entirely sure it was our series finale. And I think we went on a high note. I'm really proud of it.
Well, I mean, your whole entire career is it's fun to watch you grow, and to see, and now that you've got this book, this gives us the opportunity to see you through the challenges and the changes and the aspirations of wanting to put art in forward motion.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, it was the idea of putting art in forward motion is a lovely turn of phrase. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just a different kind of storytelling, acting, and it is just a way to wow. Can I quote Shakespeare, or are you going to turn off?
Go for it, man. Go for it.
Mic? There's that moment where Hamlet's talking to the players, and he says we're supposed to hold the mirror up to nature. And that's the ball game, kind of. It hasn't been said better in 400 years. We're supposed to show things how they actually are, and that's what I hope to do even with the broadest characters, even with like Kripke on Big Bang. You still want to ground it in truth, and that's what I tried to do with the memoir.
Wow. The name of the book is No Job for a Man, which was inspired by your father's words. My father, it would be Turn That Damn Thing Down would be the name of my book.
Which I'd also listen. That's a great name for a guy in radio. That's a phenomenal name for a memoir. I'm not kidding. That's a home run of a memoir title. Oh my God! Wow. Get on it.
So much of what you have gone through in this book is what a lot of creative people go through. I mean, come on, you're part of Egghead, and we're going to talk about some of their music today as well, because I mean, you've got music in there that really blows me away. But I mean, you got to do the music, you got to do the stage, you're in acting, and it's like, dude, you said yes to yourself. Thank God you said yes.
I did. It's funny. I didn't realize, when I started acting by taking improv classes, and as most people know, the central tenet of improv is yes and. You take whatever your partner gives you, accept it, and then add something onto it. And when I got to improv and I was taught this rule, there was a part of me that realized I had been doing it my whole life anyway. I had sort of been yes-anding my way through a lot of things, and a lot of terrible ideas too. I mean, there was a lot of jobs that were not good. I was not good at them. They were not good for the world. I worked at all sorts of nefarious companies that were damaging either people or the environment. But I don't really regret too much, and I'm glad I was able to say yes to all these different things. I think it's made me a better dad. I hope it's made me a more well-rounded person. and it makes me appreciate the jobs that I do love.
Bringing the family into your art world, because you know we can also be introverts and we have to go off into our own little spaces sometimes. Like I'll take a transition walk every day because I have to transition from being that guy on the radio to being that guy that's going to go out and do something else.
Yeah, sure, sure. Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, I think it's important to keep things eclectic in your life.
So when it comes to your creative spirit, are you a ship sailing across the ocean or across the blue sky?
Wow, interesting. I'm not entirely sure I understand the metaphor, but I feel like ocean.
Yeah.
Just because it does get kind of choppy, and I do get a little seasick. I fly pretty well. I'm not great on boats. I fly really well. For a neurotic, I fly exceptionally well. I don't know what it is. I just don't get freaked out up there. I think the worst case scenario is so awful that I can't even really wrap my head around it. So I'm not one of those people who's like, yes, 2 Xanax and an Ambien, let's go. I'm able to just get up there and deal with the air pockets. So that my plane trips have been relatively smooth. Boat rides were a little choppier for me, so I think I am a ship on the ocean.
The reason why I brought up that question is because I had just picked up on the song "Neighborhood Palm Reader," and it was like
Okay.
I was listening to it, and I watched the video, and I'm going, my God, he's letting his creative energy just flow. But where's he flowing from, and where's he going to?
Oh God, if I had an answer for that, I wouldn't have had to write the book. I'm here's the thing. I'm a fan of a lot of different things. I'm a fan of theater. I'm a fan of TV. I am a fan of music, all kinds of music.
Mm-hmm.
But given my limited skills, I turn towards punk rock, or at the very least, aggressive indie pop. And as such, I want to try all of these things. I like a good memoir, so I wrote one. There's a real sense of like, oh, what's that going on over there? Can I try that?
Yeah.
And yeah, so hence the reason I was in a band for all those years. And the song's old, but the video's only a couple months. It's coinciding, if I may plug,
Go.
it is coinciding with the vinyl release of our first CD, which came out like 20 years ago, but is called "Dumb Songs for Smart People" and is coming out on vinyl in December, which is wild.
Well, I'm glad that you're revisiting that with the music and stuff like that, because with the musicians that I'm blessed to have conversations with, we have talked about how there is a punk rock movement about to happen, and if it's not already happening out there in California, and it's amazing. But the thing is it remains underground still. It's still a little bit hidden, and I find inspiration in that because it's like I don't want it to be every 5 minutes on my radio. I just want to go find it and live it.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah. One of the things I say in the book, because there was a brief period of time where we entertained trying to do, if not just Egghead, then maybe Egghead and its record label as a full-time job. Like, what if we could do this all the time?
Mm-hmm.
And we made the rather sobering discovery that punk rock has no middle class. You are Green Day or day job. There's nothing in between, really. So yeah, wherever there is an overground, there is an underground. And right now, I mean, not right this instant, they're all sleeping in, but there are bands in LA that are getting ready to do gigs tonight in somebody's, basement in Van Nuys or backyard in Boyle Heights. And part of my current midlife crisis is getting more into that stuff again and returning to that. And I'm meeting all these guys who keep flying the flag. These young folks, listen to me. I sound like punk rock Abe Simpson. Although punk rock Abe Simpson is basically just Henry Rollins, right? I mean, that's what that is, right? But there is a lot of really exciting stuff simmering underground. I think wherever there are frustrated teenagers, there's going to be a few good punk rock bands, and that pleases me greatly.
We've hit that age, John, where it's like I talk with the younger musicians, and I'll say, well, you guys are going to do the college circuit like Dave Matthews, right? They go, who? And it's like, no, don't say that. That age is not over yet.
Yeah, I don't even want to get into what kids have or haven't heard of. That was a struggle with the book too. Like, which are the references I'm going to explain in a footnote, which ones actually have to be in the main text. in which references I want to say, you know what, buddy, go Google it.
So when you put out a book, and what I mean by put out is, in other words, it released itself from you. It's moved through you. It's now on a page. And in all honesty, it now belongs to us. And the thing
Fair
is
enough.
that what has now been cleared from your system of growth that you can now plant a new field of creativity?
I think a lot of the guilt, shame, and anger,
Oh.
some of which was justified and some of which was just me beating myself up, is out there and has been processed in a way by writing it. And hopefully people will read the book and be able to deal with whatever guilt, shame, and anger they're dealing with as well. Like, oh, look at the mistakes this guy made, and he's made it through, and he has been forgiven and forgiven himself. If it was just about me, you know, purging all my spleen out into the shelves of your better bookstores, I don't think I'd have written the book. I do think there is something very soothing about reading about somebody else's struggles and somebody else's mistakes, and I hope people can get something like that from the book.
Well, I was going to ask you why it didn't come with a yellow highlighter, because there are a lot of features in there where you can go, man, I want to come back to this. I want
Oh,
to.
that's nice. What a nice thing to say. That means a great deal. Thank you for saying that.
Well,
That is the hope. I hope people buy the book, certainly, but keep it around and don't immediately give it to Goodwill.
Well, see, creativity to me is is a misunderstood language, and you've got to learn how to speak the street of a creative person in order to to gain access. And there for the longest time, the only book that we had that we could lean on was The Artist Way from Julia Cameron. But we need books like yours that are going to say, look, I did it for you. Okay, you can still do it, but this is probably what's going to happen.
One of the great blurbs I got for the book, and I got some really lovely people to say some really lovely things about the book that we could put on the back cover. And that's a real like hat in hand moment. Like you go to your most famous friends and go, hi, listen, if you don't mind, could I send you this unpublished thing and can you say a nice thing about it? But the actress and writer Rachel Bloom, who created Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, which I loved. I genuinely loved that show, and I think she's a singular talent. She gave me a blurb that was amazing. It was something to the effect of, as personal as this book is, it's still a great handbook for the aspiring actor. And that was not necessarily my full intent, but I love that she found that, because if you're going to talk about my jobs, it's worth talking about how I do those jobs and what process goes into them. And I tried to be, without necessarily making it a how-to, I talk about, how I came to these roles and how I approached these roles and the different tactics I used to do them, and not just in acting, but the stuff I did in teaching and in radio. So it was. I didn't mean it as an instruction manual, but I am thrilled that some people have found that in there.
Speaking of teaching, we both share that where we've had it in our lives. The moment that
Oh, yeah?
something pops inside their imagination, where they finally understand. Yeah, I'm with future broadcasters, so a lot of people think they're
Oh,
stars
wow.
before they even get to class, and it's like good. I'm glad you got that energy. All right, now let's fine tune it. What are you talking about? No, we're going to fine tune you, and so but it's fun to watch when an idea becomes an actuality.
Yeah. No, it's something I've really. I still I studied to be a high school teacher. That was actually the original
Nice.
career plan. And I did that for 1 year, and it kind of broke me like a twig. And there's a detailed chapter about that in the book. But I was very, very young. I was 22 when I started teaching high school. So I was, in some cases 5 or 6 years older than these kids, and looked it, very much looked it. Just baby face, jet black hair. I shaved every day, but I didn't have to. I was living a lie. But when it was fun, when I could get them to connect with, Wordsworth or Alan Patton's "Cry the Beloved Country," I got to student teach the Scottish play, as we say in theater, since we don't actually utter the name. it was really satisfying to see people get excited, to see 15-year-olds light up about that. And it was those moments were few and far between, but they were really very exciting. And I still teach. I was teaching an acting class before the pandemic.
Nice.
That was incredibly satisfying, and I miss it. I will likely go back to it at some point.
At any time when you were putting the book together, did you have to step back into a third person kind of a role so that the writer, as well as the actual person you're writing about, could have some time alone, but we needed to have that third person in there to really keep the book going?
Well, yes, I think you've got to approach it with a certain novelistic distance at some point and realize that you don't have to, I mean, your story's interesting or it's not, but you can't take, how to put this, you can't take detail for granted.
Right.
You were in that room, but nobody else that is reading this was necessarily in that room. So how did it smell? How did it feel? How were people dressed? And you forget that at your own peril. So it has to be, God has to be in the details there. And that's when you have to step back and be like, okay, if you were writing a detective novel that was your life, and the way Raymond Chandler talks about, the way a woman slinks up to the bar and lights a cigarette, like bring that level of precision to your own life. And that's going to bring people into it with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. The name of the book is No Job for a Man. There's a lot of yellow on this book cover. Yellow is a power color, dude. You did that for a reason.
I didn't at all. It was designed by a terrific artist named Emily Flake, whom I just met in person for the first time last night,
Wow.
actually. And I just gave I don't have a great visual sense, honestly, which is why I didn't know yellow was a power color. But I very much yielded to her expertise. She's a New Yorker cartoonist whose work I've always enjoyed. And I said, here's a couple ideas. This book is about my dad. This book is about the various jobs I've had. Off you go. And yeah, it's a very autumnal cover. I noticed that. It's got a yellow background, but it's all deep browns and oranges and dark sort of maroonish reds. And there's a warmth to the cover that I really like. It's a very striking cover, I think. It's not one of those actor memoirs that is just the face of a really good filtered photograph of the face, but it's nor is it one of those sort of minimalist covers where it's just like a single raindrop or a cliff. You see a lot of cliffs on memoirs, sunsets. Memoirs love a sunset. So I didn't realize it was a power color, but I'm thrilled to hear that.
Absolutely. So have you ever had to tell your artist self no? That moment where it's like, nope, not going to do it. Nope, can't do it. Not today.
Be more specific. What do you mean by that?
Well, creativity, I always say, is an addiction. That's the reason why I have an iHeart channel called Creativity is an Addiction. And so there are times that you've got to look at that addiction in the eyes and say, no, I don't care how much you cry like a 2-year-old artist. You're not going to get my attention today.
Yeah, I can absolutely fall into holes writing or I the other night I was like, I'm gonna stay up a little bit. I'm gonna edit the video that we're gonna show at my son's bar mitzvah. I'll just take like 20 minutes and just take some old clips of my son when he was a kid. 30 people are going to see this. It's just for the party.
Yep.
And I fell into this editing K-hole, and I was in there for like 2 hours, and I look up, just look at the top of the screen. It's 1 a.m. And so the answer, I guess, is no. If I want to make something, I get real single-minded about it.
Yeah.
And it manifests itself in a bunch of different ways. If I want an acting job, I am going to get off book for this audition. I'm going to make some big choices. I'm going to distinguish myself. If I did that cliche middle-aged white guy thing during the pandemic and decide I'm going to make bread, we are making bread, and this is happening now. Bread takes time. The dough has to rise. Well, I'm starting now.
Dude,
no, I don't often say no to myself. That it is an addiction, and I am I'm really hooked to the eyeballs.
Absolutely. You got to come back to this show anytime in the future. The door is always going to be open for you, sir.
Thank you so much for having me, Arrow. This is a great talk.
Well, you be brilliant today, okay?
Okay, you too, man.